Everybody around here knows that I'm a big fan of insulation in your school bus conversion because it's always working for you. It's always helping you get that shelter from the storm and make this a livable space. And today you're in for a treat because this tan bus that I'm roughing in here with Brianna and Wolf Dog buses is ready for spray foam. We've got the heat jacked up in this shop, the wiring and the framing are done, and I'm gonna take this opportunity to make a video to show you how to take on the job of spray foaming your bus if you're gonna do it yourself. We've got some kits lined up, we've got all the tools, all the materials, we're gonna go through the steps. If this is something that you are considering doing on your own, this should be very useful for you. My name's Chuck Cassidy, thanks for tuning in. Let's foam this bus. All right, well, it wouldn't be a Chuck Cassidy video if we don't go over the tools and materials you're gonna need if you wanna do this yourself. So first of all are the spray foam kits. These are 600 board foot kits. They're the biggest size that you can easily get. These are from a company called Tiger Foam. I've had good luck with Tiger Foam in the past and I like sticking with them. I made the mistake once of buying spray foam from a different supplier. It was a Dow froth pack, which should be really good. And I got 3 bad batches in a row. I had to respray the same van 3 times. It was awful, so I'm sticking with what I know and love. In addition to that, you wanna make sure you have a full body Tyvek suit. These things run small, so like I get an extra large. You're gonna want a nice respirator setup because you don't wanna be breathing this in while you're spraying. And for masking, you know, the blue painter's tape is great, but spray foam, when it gets on things, you can remove the clump, but it leaves like a permanent shadow. And so I really like to take it pretty serious and get in with the Gorilla Tape. It's expensive. Oh, Brianna's tossing me something. Oh, Tyvek tape. Never used it, but Brianna's saying it's way better. Thank you, Brianna. What do you use this for?
I put it
for masking?
Wood,
oh, okay.
I also tape wires to a wall with it.
Okay.
So you go right off your furring strips.
Cool. So here. The next tool that you need to have is a way to measure the temperature of the tanks of the spray foam. Like a laser thermometer is ideal. I've got this fancy infrared doodad here, but the temperature at which you spray these chemicals is probably the most critical part of the installation. Verify these numbers, but in our case, the range on this was 70 to 85 degrees. It was the optimal range. It's hot in here. We've got the shop heated up to about 80 degrees right now. It's been like that all night, so we know everything's come up to temperature, and we are going to hopefully maintain that temperature as we get into spraying. Oh, here, my assistant. This is one of those laser thermometers. These are really cheap. You can get these for 30 bucks or so at the Home Depot, and all of these temperature measuring devices are super handy for many things, so definitely pick up one of them. Anyway, we're gonna get spraying. Once we start spraying, as you're using these tanks, you have to make sure that you shake them thoroughly when you start and then periodically pause and give the tanks a good shake. This is a chemical reaction that we are trying to make happen, and it has to happen completely and fully cure if we're going to avoid any of the fears of off-gassing and things like that. And to make that reaction happen, we wanna make sure it's happening at the right temperature. We wanna make sure that the chemicals are mixing at the right ratio, and we wanna make sure that each chemical itself is homogenized. The mixture in that tank is mixed up nicely. If we do all of those things, then we should be looking really good. Then it's just a matter of making sure we only put the foam where we want it and as thick as we want it. And that really comes down to trying to do less or about an inch at a time. I know it's really easy to go thicker than that, but that's when you get into issues that can cause warping and bending of metal panels and things like that. It's just not good practice to be laying down super thick layers of spray foam. And the last goal is to minimize the waste. You know, this stuff is expensive. You really don't want to trim it if you can help it. Trimming is laborious and it's wasted money, so we're gonna try our best to avoid that. We got a few things to do in there. I'm gonna show you what this bus looks like right before we spray, give you some tips on how you can think about framing and blocking everything off with masking materials. And then we'll get into it. And then the exciting part happens, a time lapse of spray foam. You know, everybody, it's so pleasing to watch. All right, let's get to work. Okay, so we have been masking this all up and we are just about ready to start the foam situation. Here's a couple of pro tips. Before you start spraying foam, get a bunch of pictures of the walls and ceilings so you know where all of your wires and things are, because once the foam goes up, they're gonna disappear. Also, we use some leftover pieces of strapping with holes in it to hold wires in place while the foam goes in and gets cured up, so that way our wires are poking out right where we want them. And then when we're trimming, this also protects that wire right there where it exits the foam. I use a lot of this Gorilla Tape to hold the wires in place while the foam goes in. I know people are gonna freak out, lose their cool about it, but yes, I don't use conduit. I just put the wires in. I'm gonna mark where these wires pass through the strapping so we don't have to put fasteners through it. And that works great for me. If you are worried about making changes later on, you can run wires some other way. We have a wire chase up there, that's a great place to add them. And we also have a chase up here if you want to put wires in after the fact. We got our pecs roughed in, that's all good to go. Brianna showed me this trick using Tyvek tape on the strapping so that when it's time to clean up, we just take the tape off and any overspray comes off with it. That's pretty cool. Let me show you what this kit looks like. So those are your two components, and we've got our valves right there. You're gonna wanna shake each one of those cans for about a minute before you start spraying. I like to fully invert it, rock it back and forth. And then you are going to attach your nozzle to those valves, and they include a wrench, a cute little stamped wrench. And this is your spray nozzle, or spray gun, I guess. These are the nozzles, and in our case, these nozzles just go into there and they clip on. Now before you put them on, your kit's gonna come with a little bit of petroleum jelly, and you'll wanna put some on the back side of the nozzle before you clip that on. You also wanna put a little petroleum jelly on these connections before you screw them on to the tanks. One of the reasons I like the Tiger Foam kits, these nozzles are color changed. So they will change to a blue or green color if the foam is too cold. And remember, temperature is one of the most critical things there. It comes preset as a fan tip. I think you can see that there. If you want a more targeted tip, that's just gonna be a small cone, you can break this off. And in my experience, you will find that you'll end up using that cone tip for most of the spraying, just because there's a lot of detail work involved in doing this. We don't have nice wide open stud bays like you would in a house or something when you would wanna use this. You get a bunch of these nozzles. Read the directions. Those nozzles have a service life to them, and if you stop spraying for more than about 30 seconds, you need to switch the nozzle, because you see those passages in there? That's for mixing the components together. And once they mix, that curing process begins. Now these kits, if you don't use all of them, you can store them for several months, but it's important that they stay climate controlled. Let me show you here. They've got this troubleshooting guide that's super useful if you have any issues. But these are the really important things to look at, and the temperature is one of them. So right here, the optimum chemical temperature is 70 to 85. Our chemicals are right around 80 degrees. So that's perfect. And here's all the tips you need to see right there, boom. They say, okay, 30 days of initial use. I've had kits that I've had for 2 or 3 months and they still were good inside. Now, once you start spraying, this chemical reaction generates a ton of heat. So as soon as we start the spraying process, we're gonna go ahead and open the garage doors in this shop so that we can start ventilating and get fresh air. And it's gonna get really, really hot in here. So just be prepared for that. I'm not gonna be wearing much under my Tyvek suit. And as you're spraying, you'll wanna stop from time to time and stir these up. I'd say every 10 or so minutes, take a pause, shake these up a bit, and then keep spraying. And before we start spraying, I'm gonna use an empty box and do a test pattern in the box to make sure that we're getting good mix, good rise, and that the foam is curing the way that we want it. It should set up pretty fast, like a couple of minutes. And if it's not, then you should troubleshoot and make sure that you're getting good results before you just start going ham on the ceiling, because this stuff is a mess to clean up. A couple of other tips: make sure you put some booties over your shoes, because spray foam on your shoes will ruin them, or they'll always have spray foam on their shoes. And if you're a hairy fellow like me, try to get some stuff on your arms to protect your arm hair from getting foam on it, because it'll just lock that hair in and it's painful. We're about to get started here though, and I'll see if I can set up a time lapse of the actual spraying process that's not gonna ruin my camera. All right, so it's been about maybe 2 minutes and this stuff is cured up. It's not sticky at all, and that's really good. So we know that we are good to just keep shooting. And I'm gonna start, it's important to remember, these are pressurized, and so you only have as much pressure as they come with. When you have a fresh tank, start with the ceiling. That's when you wanna have the most pressure, because you're shooting it upward. And as your nozzles get clogged and get gummed up, they'll start to have spatter, and it's gonna make a big mess. So that's a sign that you should change your nozzle.
I'm going to start by doing this back area in that cubby and get that all foamed in, and I'll set up a time lapse and you can watch me do the rest. We'll probably hand off, let Brianna do some of the spraying, and share any other tips and tricks that come up while we're doing it.
All right, so Brianna she kicked me out and she's doing the spraying. And I want to show you on this infrared camera, see where she sprays it in, see how it comes out. It's 78 degrees or something right about there. And then you can just watch it heat up. See how hot it is where she just was at? 170 degrees is the hottest temperature we're seeing on this screen right now. That is very hot, almost too hot to touch, but that's a good sign. It means the reaction is working correctly. Look at that, scorching. Anyway, we're gonna finish all this stuff and then we're just gonna let it cure overnight and start the trim work in the morning. Okay, we let the spray foam cure up for, it's been actually a couple days, took the day off. And now it's time for everyone's favorite, which is trimming spray foam. And Brianna claims it to be her favorite, but I think she's full of it. Oh, look, there she is. Brianna, is it really your favorite?
It's honestly my favorite.
Honestly, her
How
favorite.
do you not have fun making a complete mess?
It's freaking messy. So we did take her advice and did the Tyvek tape, and we already removed one of those, and I'll show you. It looks really good, actually. Like that move. And I'm also gonna try one of her methods that I've already done before and didn't like, but we're gonna try it we're gonna indulge her and try that as we're trimming the foam. She's got this drill with a wire brush on the end and then an angle grinder with a cup brush. It's just gonna make a freaking mess. That's what it's gonna do. I'm gonna be doing my favorite method, which is using an old handsaw like this. You can also use they make handles for Sawzall blades. I really like that one. That's probably my favorite. And then we've got some horse brushes here. These are like all right. And then I also like using a scraper. I'll probably use a paint scraper for scraping it off the strapping. And other than that, I don't really have many other tips for you. There's just get creative, you know, if you don't like the way it's going. But let me show you a little bit what it looks like in here and go over a couple things for you. Okay, so remember, we got these guys that are holding our wires in place. I like to leave these in until you're done trimming around that spot because they also help protect the wires from getting nicked by the saw blades. Then once you have these out, I'm gonna use one of these and I'm probably gonna cut a couple others down and I'll use that to just check the plane across my strapping and see, you know, where we've got high spots and trim it down. But it looks like we did pretty well here and we didn't overfill the cavities too bad. So I'm feeling pretty good about that. And I'll probably leave these ones holding the PEX pipes. I'll probably leave those in until right before we do the walls. And we already tore up the floor paper. You don't have to do that. I kind of like to do that first, but some people would want to do that afterwards. I think that's how Brianna would do it.
Yeah, because if you leave it down, then you can like just wrap it up and
Yeah.
clean.
Yeah.
Because I'm gonna make a mess in here.
She's gonna make such a mess. All right, let's get to it. This is this Tyvek tape, you know,
Like
and
tabs.
it's supposed to keep, a little tab, make it easier to pull off. And Brianna's really proud of it, but it is pretty satisfying. Go ahead. Yeah, pretty good. That works really well. Got to give it to you, Brianna. You could consider doing that too on the walls, but it's really just a matter of how much time. What's better?
Yeah.
What's better?
It's all satisfying.
It's all satisfying. I'll be using a scraper to get the strapping cleared off there, and then I'm gonna be running my saw across it. Brianna's gonna be going to town with all that stuff.
Hey, do you want me to demo all the different types of tools?
Here's a demo. All the different types. Okay, this is a horse brush. pretty good at nipping little high spots. Kinda, yeah.
It's like not as bad as I remember.
Okay, what's next? Oh,
Scraper?
barbecue scraper.
This is the roofing nail scraper.
Oh, sorry, roofing nail scraper. It's all the same. Scraper. That works great. What else do we got? Okay, so cup wheel. What do you like to use this cup wheel versus the wire wheel for?
I think we got a demo in a second because I like to get these cleared.
Okay.
And then I see the high spots.
Okay, so maybe we should just clean all the strapping first.
All this mess.
Well, that was a job well done, done well. I'm well done. We used all of the tools. I ended up using the horse brush the most. Brianna, what were you using the most?
I think I was rotating, but the horse brush on the Tiger foam, pretty ideal.
Yeah, it's worth noting if you're, and I think I mentioned it earlier, but if you're doing spray foam, the stuff that comes out of the professional rigs, you know, the ones like a truck comes to your house or your bus and does it, that comes out at a much higher velocity and way more atomized. Like it's invisible when it comes out of the gun. Whereas this, it's, you know, it's a stream that you see coming out. And this professional stuff, it just cures up to be a much harder foam. They both have the same R value and properties otherwise, but the commercial stuff is way harder, and those horse brushes have a much harder time biting in and shredding that off. But it was a great tool on this, and I'll have to look at the time, but I bet we probably just spent about 2 hours.
Is it 2 hours?
Yeah, we'll see.
You didn't feel like it when you're having fun.
Having so much fun. A couple hours, but we're done. Yay, look at that. So next move is gonna be putting these wall panels in. Well, that's going to do it for this video. I hope that takes some of the mystery and myth out of how to approach a DIY spray foam project. Now, again, I would recommend always hiring a professional if you have the option to. In our case, this job was too small for a professional to come out and do it, and so we decided to take it on ourselves. And the short bus, when all was said and done, it ended up using a little more spray foam than we planned actually, because we went kind of thick with it. We ended up using about 900 board feet is what we're guessing. A full 600 kit and about half of another one. So hopefully that's helpful for you. If you're choosing to do this yourself, best of luck. Remember the key things: temperature, follow the directions, mix it up, and well, maybe order a little extra if it's your first time doing it. Thanks for tuning in. My name's Chuck Cassidy. Big special thanks to all the people over on Patreon who support this channel directly. We've got an awesome Discord over there. You can become a member. Check out the link below. And I would love to see you at the bus fair this June in Oak Ridge, Oregon. If you're looking for a good time and you're considering bus life, that's where I'll be. You should be there too. We'll see you next time.